Hi guys! In this video, I'm going to walk through the complex pattern making challenge, which is part of your week 3 recommended challenges. I think this is a really good one in particular since it incorporates a lot of the key concepts that we've covered so far in this unit. So we'll be going through if statements, for loops, nested for loops, and mapping all in this one challenge. So it's a really great one. So let's get started. Step 1, we start super simple and it's just asking us to draw a circle. So we haven't been given any code though, so we have to create our scaffold. But I hope by now you would have been comfortable with setting up your own canvas and background. So let's get started with that. First, I'm going to create my canvas. I'm going to make it window width and window height. And my background, I'm just going to make it white for the moment. And then in my function draw, I'm going to draw my ellipse at width divided by 2, height divided by 2. And it looks pretty small, so I'll give it a size of 25. So let's run this. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. I can take this code now and pop it into the next step. So step 2 is asking us to change the circle's position and color. So it's saying we'll need to offset the position of the circle a small but random amount, and then randomly assign a color to the circle every time the draw loop runs. Think about using the random method for the position and the random method combined with if statements for the color. And make sure to use no loop so you don't see the circles jittering around in different colors. Okay, so first of all, I think I'm going to work on the offset, which will make the circle be drawn at slightly different positions on the screen, but not too drastic. So it's not completely random, but it's just a slight deviation from its original position. So to do that, I think I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to name it x offset, and I'll do the same for y, so y offset. If you haven't used this yet, this is just a really handy way to declare more than one variable. Instead of having to go let, you can say let, the name of the variable, and then comma, and then you can list a bunch of variables, comma, whatever your variable is. So I've got my variable set up, but we haven't actually assigned it any value. So in the function draw, I think I'll assign it let offset equal random 0, 30, and I'll do the same for y offset. I'm just picking these numbers arbitrarily, but we'll test them out and see if they actually work. And if I run this, nothing will actually happen because I haven't actually added the x offset and the y offset to the x and y positions. So the ellipse is still being drawn at width divided by 2 and height divided by 2. So to change that, I'm just going to add x offset to the width divided by 2 and y offset to height divided by 2. So now if we run this, we have a bunch of circles happening, but you can see that they're being drawn at different positions, but it's still like sort of staying within this sort of area. So to fix that, the challenge gave us a clue. We just have to use no loop. And if I run it now, only one circle is being drawn. And now if I run it again, it'll be drawn in a different position. Now let me just draw a point just so we can see where the actual center of the canvas is. So I'm going to go width divided by 2, height divided by 2. I'm going to make this stroke weight a bit bigger so we can see it. And I'm going to make the stroke a red color just so it stands out. Oops, height divided by 2. All right, so this is the center point of our canvas, and this is where the circle used to be drawn. And now this is where our circle is being drawn because of the addition of the x and y offset. So if we run this again, you'll see that it's constantly changing positions. But you may have noticed that we haven't got our circle moving to the top of the canvas and to the left of the canvas. And that's because we have set our x offset and y offset to start from 0 to 30. So what that means is basically our x offset is only going to add on to the x position. So it's only going to move the circle to the right of the middle of the canvas. And for our y offset, it's only going to move it larger, so further down on the y-axis. So our circles are actually not being drawn up here in this area here, which is not what we want. It's only being drawn really in this quadrant down here. So to fix that little problem, we just have to make it -30, give it a negative value so that it sort of takes in the entire radius around that center point. So now if we run this, you see we have it on top of the red dot. Run it again. Now we have it basically running everywhere. Okay, that looks great to me. I'll take out the point. That was just for demonstration's sake. And that's the position done. Now we can move on to assigning it a color. So it's asked us to use a random method combined with if statements. So this might be a new sort of functionality that you haven't really used before, but random can be actually used to create scenarios for us. So if we set some conditions that will happen when a random number is returned to us, then we can create a system that returns value to us that we're not expecting, but we've actually set a sort of scaffold for. So to do this, we have to first set our random method. So we have to set a new variable that will return a random number. So I like to use floor. I'll explain why in a second. So floor is a function that will just round down your random number. We could get a number like 1.5879. And in this scenario, I just want whole round numbers so I know what I'm dealing with. And that's what floor does. It rounds it down to the nearest whole number. So in this scenario here, I've declared a variable called R. It is going to return a value between either 0, 1, or 2. And then what I want to do is create 3 if statements that set up a scenario of what I want to happen if 0 is returned, if 1 is returned, or if 2 is returned. So this is just by creating an if statement. So I'm saying if R is equivalent to 0, then do this bit of code. And what I want to do, I want to change the fill. So I'm just going to go to my color picker. Color picker. And we'll grab a blue color. So now if R and this random function returns 0, then the color will be blue. If R returns 1, then we'll draw that red color. Let's go over here. Fill. And finally, if R is equivalent to 2, then we're going to draw that yellow color. So let's get a yellow. Okay, so we've set up our variable. It will return a value between 0 and 2. And then we're setting up our conditions for what we want to happen if each of those scenarios are true. So if R is returns 0, if R is equal to 1, if R is equal to 2, then we have different fields. Let's run this and see what happens. Okay, we've got a red, still a red. Now we've got a blue. So it's running completely randomly. So we don't know what it's going to return, but we know whatever it returns is going to be one of those fills. So this is a good and controlled use of random. So we have set some sort of parameters. So we don't want it to give us completely random colors, but we want to randomize a set of colors that we've set. Awesome. I'm going to go no stroke though. And then I'm happy with that. All right, so we can take this code and bring it into the next editor. All right, so this next step here, step 3, make a group of circles. So step 3, okay, now we've got our circles changing position and color. Let's make 3 circles appear on the screen at once. think about how we could make this happen using a for loop. All right. By now, we should be familiar with for loops. We just need to make 3 different circles. So let's do that. I think I'm going to encompass most of my code inside this for loop because I want this sort of functionality to be replicated 3 times per circle, so once per circle. So I think I'll incorporate all of this, except for the no loop, inside the for loop that I'm creating. So for let I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, I plus plus, and then open brackets, and then I'm going to close the brackets down here. I'm going to format it so it's easier to see what I'm doing. I've done something wrong, I think. What have I done wrong? For let I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, I plus plus. I don't know. There's an error here. Oh, I forgot this bracket. I forgot this semicolon. Okay, that was annoying. Okay, let's run this. Okay, so now we've got our 3 circles being drawn. Each circle is now going through that for loop where they those if statements. So each one has a different color, but some might have have the same color. That's just the luck of the draw, I guess. But when we run this, we have our circles that are being drawn in different positions with different colors, but are still consistent in style and in color. I think I want to reduce the amount of deviation though, because they seem like they're going quite far apart, and in the picture it doesn't seem like they're going so far. So let's go 10. Let's see how 10 works. Okay, I'm happy with that. And there also seems to be a bit of opacity, so I'm just going to add, let's try 50. Let's see how that looks. Oh, that's a bit too much. Let's go 90. I don't know if that helped. Okay, that's definitely not helping. I don't think it's 255. Oh, it is. Okay, 255. All right, let's give this 200 then. Okay, that looks good. Maybe we should increase this a little bit more so they're not entirely on top of each other. Okay, let's go 20. A lot of this is just playing around with the numbers till you get it to look like you want it to. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. We'll see how it goes. So I think that's this step done. So let me just copy this into the last editor down here. And basically what it's asking us to do now is to create a grid of these 3 circles. So generally, whenever you see grid, think nested for loop. That's how you're going to achieve this grid structure. And we just have to make sure it encompasses the for loop that we've already created for the 3 ellipses, so that each basically cell in this for loop will encompass the 3 circles. So I hope that made sense, but we'll do it and we'll see if we can get it done. Let me just look at the instructions. Use the value of the loop state within a nested for loop to tell the group of circles where their X and Y positions are starting from before being randomly offset, like in step 2. Okay, we can do this. I think it's important to note that our ellipses were originally being drawn at width divided by 2 and height divided by 2, so that was their center point. But when we created this nested for loop, we want this initial X value and this initial Y value, that's going to change because that's going to sort of be where each of these cells are. So that's That's what's going to change. We'll take you through it. So let's create our nested for loop first. So for let x equals 0, x is less than, let's say, 2, 3, 14, x plus plus, open our brackets, for let y equals 0, y is less than, let's see how many have been drawn, 7, y plus plus, and then down here after the ellipse is where I'm going to close off my 2 brackets. Now let's format this so this looks nice and neat again. Okay, so we've got our 2 for loops, our nested for loops up here that will sort of dictate our x and y positions. Then we've got our for loop here that is drawing out 3 individual circles, and then our nested for loops are being closed. So after this nested for loops, now I'm going to use some mapping to make sure that each of the x and y positions have been scaled nicely to the width and height of the canvas. So let's go create a mapping function, let x pos equal map from 0 to 13, and now we want it to go from, let's give it a border of 50 maybe, width minus 50, and then we'll do the same for the y positions, y pos equal map 0 to 6, and 50 height minus 50. Okay. We've set up our mapping. We haven't used it yet. So think back to what I said a couple minutes before. We're going to actually change this ellipse initial position because that's going to now be changing based on this map and based on the nested for loop. So let's make this x pos plus the offset. And then let's make this y pos plus the y offset. So if we run this, fingers crossed it should work. It's not working. Why isn't it working? Okay, let's think why isn't it working. For let x equals 0. For let y is equal to 0, y is less than 7, y plus plus. Oh, I forgot to put in what I'm actually mapping in the x pos and y pos, which is very silly of me. So let's pop x and y in there, because in the x pos I'm mapping the x value, in the y pos I'm mapping the y value. Let's see if it works now. Okay, it works. That looks great. I probably want to decrease this a little bit again. So let's try 15 maybe. That looks a bit better. Let's even try 12. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I think that looks really close to what this picture looks like. Obviously, I chose different colors, but we're getting the same effect, which I love. And that's it. That's this challenge. We have completed this, so you should now have a good idea of what for loops do, what nested for loops do, how to apply randomness in a really effective way, conditionals, and also movement, so adding that x offset and y offset so we don't just get static positions. So congratulations. Good luck with the rest of your challenges.